They stared at her like she was nothing. Just another black woman in a crowded room. Hair pulled back. Plain clothes. No jewelry. No fancy heels. No entourage. Just calm eyes, strong posture, and a quiet presence that somehow made the air feel thick. Whispers floated in the background. She doesn't belong here. Who let her in? Is she lost? They didn't ask her. They judged her. She could feel it like tiny knives pricking her soul. Not just the racism, but the assumptions. The ones that scream silently. You have no power here. You don't matter. But she smiled. Not the smile of someone trying to be liked. No, this was the calm, quiet smirk of someone who knows exactly who she is. You see, they had no idea who they were looking at. To them, she was just another black woman sitting in the back of the room. No status, no voice, no value. But they didn't know about the battles she'd already fought. They didn't see the late nights she spent studying laws most people never read. They didn't know she passed through neighborhoods where sirens were more common than sleep. They didn't see the medals tucked away in drawers or the certificates framed quietly in her living room. They didn't know she had power. Real power. Not because someone handed it to her, but because she earned it. And when the moment came, the moment where she could have stayed silent, blended in, let the injustice pass, she stood. The room fell silent. Not because of her skin, not because of her gender, but because of something else, something they didn't expect. She reached into her pocket, pulled something out slowly, and in one swift, powerful motion, she showed her badge. Not just a symbol, a statement. And that's when the whole room changed. Long before that badge ever saw the light of day, she walked roads where justice was just a word people whispered, never something they lived. Her name was Maya, and Maya had grown up in a place where little girls with braids and brown skin weren't told they could be heroes. They were told to stay quiet, to be respectful, to not draw attention. But even as a child, Maya saw things others ignored. She saw how her mother would get followed around in stores, how her father's voice would drop when police passed by. She saw how her older brother got searched just for walking home with a backpack. She learned young that some people didn't want her to rise. But she also learned something far more powerful. She didn't need their permission to rise. She remembered the day she told her high school counselor she wanted to join law enforcement. The counselor blinked twice and said, "That's ambitious. Maybe try social work." Maya smiled politely, but inside she whispered, "Watch me." From that moment on, she trained her mind like a soldier trains for battle. Early mornings, night classes, side jobs. She'd clean offices at 2 a.m. and study case law by 3. She applied for academies again and again, facing rejection after rejection. But her spirit? Unbreakable. Because Maya wasn't just chasing a job, she was chasing a mission. She wanted to be the woman she never saw growing up. A black woman in power. A woman who knew the law and wouldn't let it be twisted against her people. She didn't want the badge for glory. She wanted it for protection, for presence, for purpose. And finally, after what felt like a lifetime of no's, she heard her first yes. She still remembers holding that acceptance letter in her hand. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from fire. Fire that had burned quietly inside her since she was a little girl. Training was no easier. Some questioned why she was there. Others mocked her quietly. But Maya wasn't there to be liked. She was there to lead. And every obstacle, every microaggression, every doubt, every whisper behind her back only made her stronger. And when she finally became an officer, it wasn't the uniform that changed her. It was the responsibility. She walked through neighborhoods that reminded her of home. She looked into the eyes of young black boys who didn't trust anyone in uniform, and she understood. She didn't try to fix everything in one day. She just showed up, consistently, kindly, strongly, because she knew the truth. Power wasn't about showing force. It was about showing up. It was a humid Thursday afternoon, the kind where the sun feels like it's watching you, and the air is thick with unspoken words. Maya was off duty, dressed in casual jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and her natural curls tied up in a bun. She was just out to grab a few groceries, nothing major. But as she walked into the corner store, a hush seemed to fall. It wasn't new to her. That subtle change in energy when a black woman walks in with confidence and calm. Some glanced. Some stared. And then there was the man at the counter. Tall, loud, leaning over a young cashier who looked visibly uncomfortable. He was yelling, accusing the boy of shortchanging him, calling him useless, slow, and worse. Maya felt that familiar burn rise in her chest. She didn't like confrontation, but she never turned away from injustice. She stepped in gently. Everything all right here? The man snapped his head toward her, already annoyed. Mind your business. Maya stood firm. No need to raise your voice, she said calmly. He's just doing his job. The man scoffed, then laughed. Oh, look at this. We got ourselves a savior today. What are you going to do, sweetheart? Call someone. Others in the store were now watching. Some pulled out phones. Some whispered. No one moved. Maya didn't flinch. I'm asking you to calm down. You're harassing a minor. And that's when the mask came off. He stepped closer. I don't take orders from nobodies, he hissed. Especially not from some loudmouth black chick who thinks she runs the room. Maya's jaw clenched. But she didn't yell. Didn't raise her voice. Didn't flinch. She simply reached into her pocket and pulled out her wallet. She flipped it open. There it was. The golden badge, shimmering under flickering store lights. Her name, her rank, her authority. The shift in the room was instantaneous. Silence fell like a curtain. The man's smirk vanished like smoke. His chest puffed out, but now it was with regret, not arrogance. You're a cop, he stammered. Maya didn't say a word for a moment. She just held his gaze. Steady, calm, immovable. Yes, she said softly. I am, and I suggest you step outside before this becomes a bigger issue. He stepped back, mumbled something, and walked out fast. The air in the room felt lighter. The cashier exhaled deeply. And the people around? Their eyes were wide, not just from surprise, but from respect. One woman whispered, I didn't even know we had sisters like you in the force. Maya turned to her and smiled. We've always been here, just not always seen. The store manager came over and shook her hand. The cashier said, Thank you. No one's ever stood up like that before. And Maya just nodded. Because that's the thing about true power. It's not loud. It doesn't need to scream. It doesn't threaten. It just stands. Strong. Silent. Sure, that badge didn't make her powerful. She made the badge powerful. She walked out of that store, groceries in one hand, badge tucked back in her pocket. But something had shifted in the people, in the room, in the story that would now be told. Because they thought she had no power, until she showed them exactly who she was. News travels fast in small neighborhoods. By that evening, people were already talking. She didn't even raise her voice. Did you hear what she said before showing the badge? Man, she was calm. Like scary calm. But it wasn't just the calmness. It was the power behind her silence. The presence that made people rethink everything they thought they knew. At home, Maya sat on her porch with a warm cup of tea. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Texts from old friends, coworkers, and even a couple of reporters who'd caught wind of the story from someone who posted a video online. Yes, someone had filmed it. It had already gone semi-viral on a community Facebook page. The caption read, She didn't need to yell. She just was. Respect. And comments poured in. Some for people of color, saying how proud they felt. Some from women saying Maya reminded them that strength doesn't look one certain way. And some from people who admitted they didn't realize their own biases until now. But Maya wasn't thinking about all that. Not yet. She was thinking about the cashier. His wide eyes. His silence. And the way he looked at her, as if she had just redefined what a hero looks like. Because you see, Maya had worn that badge for years. She had stood in courtrooms, arrested dangerous people, helped children out of bad homes. But never had her badge meant more to someone than it did in that grocery store. And that's what kept echoing in her heart. We've always been here, just not always seen. The next day, she was called in by her captain. He wasn't angry. On the contrary, he was impressed. Whatever you did yesterday, you reminded people what justice should look like, he told her. There were talks of a community outreach event. They wanted her to speak, to represent. But Maya wasn't in it for the spotlight. She just wanted the next girl who looked like her to know she belonged too. A week later, she was at the local high school, invited to speak to a group of teenage girls. Many were black, some mixed race, all curious. And when she walked in, wearing that same black tee jeans, and this time her badge hanging proudly from her neck, the room fell into an inspired silence. One of the girls raised her hand and said, "Miss Maya, do you ever get scared?" Maya smiled, took a breath. "Every day. But I don't let that fear decide who I am. I let my purpose do that." The girls leaned in, eyes wide, ears open, hearts quietly whispering, "Maybe I can too." That moment right there was bigger than any arrest, any courtroom victory, any viral clip, because Maya had become more than an officer. She had become a mirror that showed young women of color what possibility looked like, what poise sounded like, what power truly meant. No shouting, no aggression, no proving, just being, fully, unapologetically, powerfully. Why were they so surprised? Why was the air in that store so thick with disbelief when Maya held up her badge? It wasn't just the badge, it was her skin, her poise, her presence. Because let's be honest, there's a story the world has been told for far too long. A story that says power wears a suit, not braids. That leadership walks in polished shoes, not sneakers. That authority comes with a deep voice, not soft tones and clear eyes. And that a black woman, especially one who's quiet, kind, and calm, couldn't possibly be someone the world should respect. That's the lie they had bought into. The same lie sold through media, through subtle looks, through uncomfortable silences in rooms where she was the only one like her. But that lie shattered the moment Maya calmly reached for her wallet and flipped open the badge. And in that exact moment, the world around her had to adjust its lens, because reality had just overridden their assumptions. You see, Maya wasn't asking for respect. She was commanding it without saying a word. And that's the thing about real power. It doesn't scream. It just is. But let's go deeper. Why was her power so threatening? Because it was unfamiliar. Because it didn't look like the version of control they were used to. Because it forced people to reckon with their own judgments. To admit, even silently, "I saw her," and assumed she had none. This isn't just about one woman in a grocery store. It's about every black woman who walks into a room and is immediately evaluated. By her clothes, by her voice, by how assertive she is or isn't. It's about how society often treats softness as weakness and strength as aggression, especially when it comes from someone who looks like Maya. And yet, she had flipped the script. She made them sit with their discomfort. Maya's moment wasn't a confrontation. It was a correction. She wasn't loud, but her presence thundered. She didn't accuse, but the guilt was felt. She didn't explain who she was, because her badge and her quiet grace already had. That, my friend, is transformation. That's the kind of energy that shifts mindsets. That doesn't just go viral, but goes inward, making people think, making them reflect. You could say it was divine timing, or maybe it was just long overdue. Because every day that passes without women like Maya being seen for who they are is a day the world loses out on brilliance, leadership, and quiet revolutions. But not that day. Not anymore. From now on, when someone sees a woman like Maya, a woman with poise, power, and presence, they'll remember. They'll remember the lesson they learned not through humiliation, but through revelation. And that, perhaps, is the greatest kind of justice. Beloved soul, do you see now what I see in you? Do you understand why the world was caught off guard? Because you, like Maya, carry a quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need permission to exist, the kind that doesn't wait to be invited into the room. It owns the room. They thought the black woman had no power, but what they failed to realize is this. It was always there, rooted deep in her ancestors' prayers, anchored in the sacrifices made by those who walked before her, shining through the resilience stitched into her spirit. Child of purpose, you were never powerless. You were simply underestimated. And that underestimation, it was never your burden to carry. It was theirs to unlearn. You were designed to rise in moments just like this. Moments where the world tries to define you, box you in, make you doubt your voice. But you're not here to fit in. You are here to disrupt, to awaken, to show what power looks like when it wears grace, when it speaks with love, and when it walks in truth. I have watched you dim your light, thinking it would make others more comfortable. But listen me now, as I whisper into your soul. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing. Stop second-guessing what I've already placed inside you. Like Maya, you carry a badge too. Not a physical one, but something far more eternal. Your badge is your divine authority. Your right to exist unapologetically. Your mission to break chains with your presence alone. When you walk, heaven notices. When you speak, the atmosphere shifts. When you believe in yourself, the very mountains begin to tremble. So don't ever let a sideways glance, a cold shoulder, a whisper behind your back make you forget who you are. You are a force. You are chosen. You are the embodiment of the prayers your grandmother prayed. And even if they don't clap for you, even if they question your worth, remember this. I anointed you. I appointed you. And I have already gone before you. Just like Maya revealed her badge to remind the room who she was. Sometimes you, too, must reveal your light, to remind the world who you are. You don't need to explain yourself. Your energy will speak. Your walk will speak. Your peace will speak. Because when a woman aligned with divine purpose stands tall, even without a sound, the whole world listens. Now rise, powerful one, not to prove anything, but simply to be everything you were created to be. They thought you had no power until you showed them. You are the power, and I have always known it.